I got paid millions of dollars a year to bet on the collapse of your working class, okay? I've walked away to come here on this show for free because I want to tell the public, the American people, this gets worse.
Piers Morgan brings on right-wing commentator Dave Rubin and British economist Gary Stevenson to talk about the fact that billionaires control the world and what could be done to sort of even the playing fields with everybody else. Of course, Piers Morgan and Dave Rubin will come out pro-billionaire and even frame the questions as, why do you want to take away from the billionaires? When in reality, billionaires create poverty. You can't be a billionaire without exploiting people. But let's look at some clips and we'll chop it up in between.
Can you point to a period in UK history, for example, where massively punishing rich people by massively taxing them has actually benefited the country?
Listen,
because I can't really.
My dad was born in 57. He worked for the post office, Royal Mail, 35 years. Never once earned more than the average wage in the country. He was able to buy a house, support a family. My parents are retired now. They own their own property. They're financially secure. That's not possible now. He lived in an era where the top rate of tax was much, much, much higher. The 50s, the 60s, the 70s in the UK, in the US, the top rate of tax on large estates was significantly higher. And in that time period, it's not a coincidence, ordinary people could afford to buy houses.
Even the framing of the question, massively punishing billionaires, it's a ridiculous way to frame it, especially because the only way billionaires become billionaires and stay billionaires is by punishing the rest of the world, working to privatize everything from parks to trees to water. And Gary focuses on the idea that someone working a regular job can live comfortably, have a home, have a car, raise a family. That used to be the American dream, but the greed of the billionaire class has made it so that's only a dream now. It's no longer the case. The more you have the riches of people being able to buy politicians, they rig the rules in their favor. They're trying to, with every step, trying to get rid of the middle class. I see people ask, why don't Americans completely boycott and go on a general strike? It's because most people are 2 paychecks away from complete homelessness. And that's by design.
What I'm talking about is creating the conditions that will allow people to live a life that they want to live and work a job that gives
the conditions of the 50s.
Well, no,
the conditions of the 60s.
So your solution, I completely disagree with, which is, let's just take more from those people. They have too much. And if we only give it to the government, which whether you're in this country or in my country, I think it's fairly obvious that most of our governments are completely fraudulent and backwards and doing virtually nothing right.
Who's doing the taking? Who's doing the taking? Which group in our society is getting richer and which group is getting poorer?
So again,
who is doing the taking?
So I accept that the rich are getting richer.
I'm just here to protect my people.
Poorer.
I'm just here to protect my people.
I think what you would want
I think we're
to
agreed
do
about the reality. What we're disagreeing about is the solution.
And the solution is get the government out of the way. Stop spending. Stop.
You think the government should be much more involved?
Let me take you by a hand and lead you through the streets of London. I'll show you something.
But again, that's because your government clearly has done policies, it seems you both are in agreement on that hasn't created the conditions for economic prosperity. You might want to talk about importing people that you then had to put on the dole.
They've been slashing the state for 14 years, boss. They slashed the state, they slashed the state, they slashed the state.
So you think if the state
and now my friends' kids don't have no places to go, they don't have no local services,
if the
police barely exist,
things would be better.
The hospitals aren't working, the schools are shutting down.
And the Make America Great Again crowd often talk about the 50s and 60s being a good time. But the reason that was a good time for some Americans was because the highest marginal tax rate was about 90% on everything above $200,000, which in today's money is about $3 million. And back then, houses were $18,000, $20,000. Cars were $2,000, $5,000, $7,000, which is unthinkable today. But then Piers Morgan and Dave Rubin will freak out over that.
You are absolutely right. I think we can all agree. We have all agreed. You're right. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. So what do we do about this? I mean, there is a caveat. There is less child poverty now than there's ever been in the history of the recorded planet. People also, to make you also feel happy, people are living longer than they've ever done in history. They're living healthier because we're curing so many more diseases. Water is a lot cleaner than it's ever been. There are fewer mosquito-type diseases out there killing millions of people than there used to be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a very good argument to say that in recorded history, there's never been a better time to be alive. That's why I slightly challenge, I would never say, like you say, you never say being poor makes you happy. Of course not. But I've yet to see evidence.
Piers, do you think
that
your viewers are the richest they've ever been? Is that what you're telling me?
No, but I don't. But I think that there's certainly less child poverty statistically
In the US?
than there's ever been.
Your average American is
In the West,
richest they've ever
generally,
been.
actually. In the West, generally.
Your viewers can make their own opinion of that.
You don't think that's true?
I want your viewers to ask themselves, do I feel the richest I've ever been? Because I tell you who's the richest they've ever been, me, and probably you, and probably you, and Donald Trump, and Elon Musk. And in my opinion, what I see, I'm from a poor background.
But I think
see it
you're
every day.
but I think you're a great example of somebody who's made something of himself, come from a poor working class background by your own admission, and you turned yourself into the best trader in the world. You're a great example. And yet what you seem to be wanting to do is almost retreat
No,
from
listen,
your
I don't want to
retreat
tax
from
work.
your
I don't want to
success.
tax working people more. Okay? I worked hard to drag my family out of poverty, right? And I paid 50, 60% a year tax. At the same time, Duke of Westminster inherits £10 billion, more than 3,000 times what I made, pays nothing. Do you think that's fair?
No.
Do you think that's fair?
No, but again,
So let's change it. Let's change it. Let's tax working people less, your viewers less, and let's tax the billionaires more.
Piers Morgan and Dave Rubin pretend to agree with the problem, but they don't see it as a problem because they're never for any policy or any politician that ever calls for a solution. If the problem is poverty, even within people with jobs, especially within people with jobs, the fix is making sure that CEOs can make 100 times more than their employees, 50 times more than their employees. But according to Dave Rubin, that's just more government. It's not more government. It's the government of the people working for the people instead of working for the billionaire class that bribed them and call it lobbying. Because that money doesn't even have to go to the state. It could just go directly to the workers, the people whose productivity is actually creating the profits that are being robbed by the riches of people. You can't have companies that pay their employees less than a living wage and also profit billions of dollars a year, because that profit is only wage theft. They're just parading the fact that they can rob their own employees. Like when we covered DoorDash robbing millions of dollars from their employees in a sneaky, tricky way while calling it guaranteed pay, which only comes to light when they're sued by a DA years after the fact. It's not like it's immediate. They get to parade around like successes while robbing their own people, and if a DA doesn't sue them, they get away with it. In DoorDash's case, they got caught and eventually had to pay restitution to some drivers in some states, but it wasn't all drivers in all states, even though all of them were affected by it. And even in that settlement, they don't know how much profit DoorDash made while robbing its own drivers. The worst part of these type of debates is people like Dave Rubin and Piers Morgan pretending like, oh yeah, we agreed on the problem, but taxing the riches of people is too far. We don't agree there because it'll be punishing them. Being worth $400 billion, spending $270 million to get a president elected, and then inserting yourself in the White House to try to cut social services for regular people, that's actual punishment being handed down by billionaires to everybody else. Piers talks about how we are now the richest we've ever been. There's less poverty. There's less people in hunger. But that's not true. There's more income inequality now than when there were kings and servants. And that state of the world is what billionaires want. That's where they strive to get us to. They only want the people in their group controlling the rest of the masses. If you can say that you agree that that's unfair, but you don't want to change it at all, then do you really think it's unfair? No, you're a liar. We recently covered when Sam Cedar talked to Patrick Bet-David and advocated for a return to the top marginal tax rate being 90%, over $3 million. And not only do I agree with that, everything over $500 million should be taxed at 100%. And like I said in that video, all studio apartments should be free because there's no reason why we have billionaires, homeless people, and empty apartments in the same place, in the same state, in the same country. That's not sustainable. And if you agree or disagree, let me know in the comment section. If you like how I'm covering these debates, hit the like, subscribe, and let me know what you think about all this in the comment section. Peace.